So again, I always try to make these demos as, well, one, they're live demos, so stuff might go wrong. I'm just preempting with that. But we try and do live demos specifically because everybody else just does slides. And we think, actually we want to make sure that we show what is real. So the live demo that I'm going to do is running one of these large language models, one of these AIs on your own machine. And until I saw one of these demos at one of our own meetups, actually, I think it was in London that someone did one, I didn't realize how easy it was. And so, how many of you have already run one of these models on your own machine? That is much more than I would have thought. Interesting. How many of you are not engineers and ran this on your own machine? Okay, fewer. I'm hoping many of you will be able to do this. You will be able to. The question is, will you? It's so dramatically easy. It's crazy. Now, one of the biggest things that comes back, and this is more in Europe than it is in the US, but there is a lot of concern around what happens with the data you send to a large language model, and do they train on it? What is the area in which, if you're sending confidential client data to it, for example, is that something you should be doing or not? Companies are trying to figure out what are their policies around this, and individuals are trying to figure out, wait, I have a really difficult question, something that I kind of don't want to Google. Then do you want to send it to a large language model, for example, right? So things like that which are interesting. Now, when you run a large language model on your own machine, it means that nothing leaves your device. And that is a pretty big thing. So actually, I think I can do this. I am going to, for the duration of this machine, I am switching off my Wi-Fi. The first time I did this demo, I went into a 2-minute conversation with someone in the audience that was like, yes, but the model went to the internet to go and do this thing. It's like, no, it doesn't. So I have switched off my Wi-Fi. Everyone knows there is no internet connection on my machine anymore, right? And I'm going to try and show you just how easy this is. How many of you, well, actually, most of the people that will have used a large language model on their machine, probably using LM Studio or something like it. How many of you know LM Studio or about LM Studio? Fewer, interesting. I'd love to afterwards figure out what you are using then in that case. So I am just going to launch LM Studio. Here you have the starting screen of LM Studio. Sorry.
Can you turn off these lights?
Yeah, it's really hard to see.
OK, let's try and see if we can turn off the lights. I imagine they must be here. Ha! Only the ones that actually asked is not going to happen, but. Good, and now we have the audio again. We will figure this out. OK, well, the audio we can deal with, at least the live demo can continue. I wanted to say as well, all of this is recorded. You will get full-on video recordings of everything that's happening. They're all on the platform, and you can actually follow everything that's going on screen. So what you see here is the starting screen from LM Studio. So you can see various models that are being showcased. It just gives you the models that you can download to your own machine. Now, I am doing all of this on a MacBook Air. Okay, it is an M2, not even an M3, but it is a MacBook Air. So there's a high likelihood. It's not the best machine in the world I like the machine, but it's definitely not very powerful for the standards of today's machines that you probably would have gotten from your job. So I don't have internet, which means I can't actually search for a model. But that was the whole thing. I wanted to prove that this is working without internet. So what you can do, literally, you just choose your model. If you wanted to search for one, you can do that if you have internet. And then when you click download, it literally does exactly what it says there, which is downloading the model to your machine, and there's nothing else to it. Once it's finished downloading, you have nothing else to do. You then have various parts of the application. You have the AI chat, which I'm actually going to delete some of this. So the AI chat is basically an interface like ChatGPT, where you can load in your own model. So you load in the model that you downloaded. Once you've downloaded it, it will just populate in the list here. And then you can select it, and once you select it, it starts loading it into memory. In my case, I've got a few that I downloaded. So it was stable LM, Llama 7B, Phi 2, and recently Phi 3 got released, so I downloaded that, I think 4 days ago. Llama, so depending on the size of the machine that you have, or the power of the machine you have, you can actually execute bigger models. You have on this page here an actual indication on how much power, or if your machine is likely capable of handling the size of the model that you're downloading or not. My machine only has 8 gigabytes of RAM, which means that it's saying everything is kind of out of range, but 8 gigabytes of RAM can just about execute the smallest model, so it just means my machine is a little bit slower. So AI chat basically allows you to go and just have conversations with the model. The playground allows you to have multi-model sessions. So you can actually load multiple models at the same time and launch one chat that then gets executed across many of them or a few of them. So you can compare what one model does with another. And then the other bit is the local server. You can actually run this as a server on your own machine so that you can develop against it and do whatever you want. Extremely easy. So here, the other thing is if you do download a bigger model and then you load it up, it will try. If I hit enter on this one, and I'm just making sure I don't, it will grind my machine to a halt because it'll try to load this big model on my machine. It'll try to execute it. You'll actually start to see it execute some stuff, but it'll just totally overpower everything else on my machine. And I will have to I actually did this once. I had to reboot my machine during a live demo, which didn't really go well. So in this case, I am going to use the Phi 3 model, which is the latest model from Microsoft that is a very kind of small model specifically built for, I think the performance is now better than GPT 3.5, but it will run on this MacBook Air. So I'm going to just click on that.
Question.
Yep.
Can we ask questions now? Or,
Sure.
So just out of curiosity, since you said that the larger models would crash your machine, is it usually memory bound or CPU bound?
That depends on the model, and it depends on your machine. So it's a hard question to answer.
In general, is the challenge that there's a lot of data that the model has sparse, and so it's memory bound, or is it that there's a lot of computing?
Sorry, no, it's rare. In my case, so in order for the model to perform pretty decently on my device, it tends to load the entire model in memory. And so then both the interactions as well as the model itself go through memory, which means like there's no real difference. There are models which can kind of parallelize, but yeah, that is the extent to which actually I would know from this. So I wouldn't be able to go any deeper, if that makes sense. Okay, so I just loaded up the model. So Phi is here. So again, I am without Wi-Fi here, right? So I'm going to say, what do you know about Mindstone? It's extremely fast at how it's answering on my local machine here, right? Mindstone refers to a concept or a term that might be related to several fields, isn't entirely clear without additional information. Mind mapping software, Mindstone. I did not know there was a mind mapping software called Mindstone. Mindfulness practice, gaming, technology, startup. It's also possible Mindstone might be the name of a startup company. There we go. It got something. Now you can do everything here that you would do with ChatGPT. Now obviously it is a smaller model, so it actually does perform on a bunch of metrics similar to the free version of ChatGPT, but it is limited to the knowledge that it has because it's all running there, and also again, the bigger the model you have, the more power you will need to execute it. Trying to look here. Now, this is an interesting starting point. I'm not going to go too much further into it, but you can have all the same conversations you'd have with ChatGPT. Now, you will see that it doesn't know much about Mindstone because, well, one, we have only been around for a little time, and actually, we've only been all in on the AI bit about 6 months, less than that, 5 months now. So the cutoff date for this model is likely much earlier than that, which means it doesn't even know that we are all about AI. Now, how many of you have heard about anything LM, anything LLM? Okay, a few have as well. So one of the beautiful things you can do with this as well, I'm going to eject the model, so I'm going to remove it from memory so that I have that free. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spin up now a local server with Phi3 again. So I'm selecting the same model, but I am spinning it up as a server. And then what I can do, I can launch anything LLM. All right, yeah. And here, actually the first time you launch anything LLM, it's going to ask you what model provider do you want to use? And so you just have to select LM Studio, which is, I can't show you that here because I've already used it in the past. When I now select, I'm going to create a new workspace, and I'm going to call it demo. And in the configurations, actually here, was it? Nope. What did I? I am missing something here. Wait, I did this earlier today. Shit. I'm missing something now. Something obvious that obviously during a live demo I'm like, pretty sure it was here.
Whenever you scroll down in that list.
No, you can't. Where am I? I'm missing something entirely obvious and I'm just blanking on it. So what I want to do is, well, there we go, literally. So, okay, the biggest thing that I wanted to demo here is actually how do you add different files to the thing, and that there was literally just, I was in the wrong button here. So you click on uploading the context that you want to add to the model. And I had already previously uploaded a few so that it allows me to go faster. So here I have the AI Mastery deck from Mindstone. I'm going to move that to the workspace. When I move that to the workspace, it means that I'm now going to add this as context to the model that I want to execute locally. So basically it goes to the vector database, and then the vector database gets added or is used whenever I'm executing a query, for anyone that understands what that means. Then I can ask here, what can you tell me about the Mindstone AI Mastery program? And here, if I look over here, and this is going to be, I'm going to try and see if I can zoom in. It's not letting me zoom in. Interesting. It's not actually showing me the context in this particular case. Let me just double check that it's taking. Let me just ask one more. I'm just going to add a new thread and say, what can you tell me about the Mindstone AI Mastery program? No, it's not actually. What can you tell me about Mindstone? It's not actually sending the context along, which it was doing before. Okay, live demo. So something definitely did go wrong there. Okay, it does know more about it, but What is supposed to happen at this particular point is that now it would take into account, or it would figure out that obviously I'm asking a question about Mindstone. It has Mindstone in its memory already, and it should be answering from the actual context of the document rather than from its own memory in this particular case. For some reason, it's not doing that now. It did it 3 hours ago. So either I messed up something in this particular demo, or I am or it's just behaving badly at the moment. And the reason I was looking at here is normally you actually see the context being passed in the request that is going through to the model as well. So all of that to say that within the last...
Yeah, it's showing that, right? It says context.
Yeah.
Mm?
It did pass back the context.
Where?
Yeah, it's context, yeah. Those two lines, yeah.
Content. Yeah, so this is the answer, right? So where it should have given the context in the message that actually went out to the LLM. So the way the context enhancement normally works is that you have a message, basically. It's the same thing that the way this works with, well, actually any LLM, so even ChatGPT. Basically, you have a vector database somewhere, you have a request, and then as you send the request, it identifies if there is data in the vector database that relates to the request that you have. It then takes that data, it appends it to your actual request before it ever sends that to the large language model. And then the large language model doesn't just have your request, but it also has the data from the vector database that came with it. And so then it can actually answer from that. So that's why it should have been in the request going out, not in the request coming back. Right, so that's something went wrong there. But in the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we did just load an LLM on my own machine. We then created a server from it. You can develop against this. You have an actual endpoint that you can use to develop against this if you wanted to locally. And you can use Anything LLM. If you uploaded a few more documents, so maybe just I'm using the Anything LLM in internal vector database, so maybe it's just the vector database itself is not as performant as it could be. You can swap that out for something else, and then you'll get better performance. But you can see how you can start to ask questions based on the documents that you have on your own machine using a large language model that now is already superior to GPT 3.5. All of that with open source stuff available, and it's all free. Right? All of this stuff is totally free, and it executes pretty instantly on a MacBook Air. So that's what I wanted to show. Hopefully you learned something new. And on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Hades. Yeah, okay, sorry.